ready, my asylum patients? Gothic Slenderman. PlayStation Allstars Battle Royale, released on November 20th, 2012, is a 2D party fighting game bringing together multiple game characters from PlayStation's history. But I will admit the game has its flaws. It's not at all a bad game. I do feel that it is an underrated game, though, that needs a sequel. So for this list, I will be going over 10 things people say about PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale that I hate. However, there's something else I'd like to bring up. If you love All-Stars as much as I do, and you want to see a sequel for the game, go to Twitter, Facebook, and any social network out there, and use the hashtag PS Allstars Round 2, and share it to everyone you know who cares about either PlayStation or PlayStation All-Stars, and maybe try to get Sony to notice. If we could get them to notice the release dart hashtag, then maybe we could get them to notice this, and let them know that even though it only sold 1 million units, there is still a dedicated fan base. Also, before I start, let me get a few things clear. I will be bringing up Nintendo's Super Smash Bros. Franchise a lot in this video due to the fact that most of the things people say about All-Stars are either because of Super Smash Bros. Or directed from it. I say this because I don't want people to think that I'm some kind of fanboy who thinks everything PlayStation or Nintendo is pixel perfect. My first console was a PlayStation, as my first handheld was a Game Boy. I have almost equal experiences with both Nintendo and PlayStation, so I will try my best to include the least amount of bias as possible. Also, I don't want people to think that I believe All-Stars is a better game than Smash. While that is based on opinion, I do like Smash more, but it has its flaws as well. So I don't want people thinking that I'm just bashing Smash Brothers in any way, shape, or form. No recognizable characters? Some people believe that the game didn't sell well because they say that PlayStation doesn't have many recognizable characters. But I feel that is not a good argument. Why? Because we can't assume that everyone will have the same experiences in the gaming community. There are some people who have only played on PlayStation systems and never touched a Nintendo system, as there are some people who have only played on Xbox systems or Nintendo systems or are exclusively PC gamer. Like I said at the beginning of this video, my first console was a PlayStation. Because of this, I was able to recognize Crash Bandicoot a whole decade before I started actively playing Mario games. I was able to recognize Crash Bandicoot, Sonic the Hedgehog, Pac-Man, and Spike from Ape Escape long before I even knew who Link or Samus were. Also, a very popular indie game based on the competitive Super Smash Bros. Gameplay includes completely original characters who were never seen beforehand, has multiple players already purchasing the early access, and the roster isn't even completely revealed, proving that you don't need a recognizable character to have a successful party fighter. Evil Cole. A lot of people also like to bring up the character Evil Cole, and yes, I agree that maybe they should have made a single neutral Cole and add a new character instead of splitting him into two different fighters. But many people are also forgetting Super Smash Bros. Characters like Dr. Mario, Pichu, Young Link, Falco, Roy, Ganondorf, Toon Link, Lucas, Wolf, Dark Pit, and Lucina. 11 clones out of a roster of almost 60 characters in the entire series so far. And yes, I know many people prefer to use the term semi-clones for characters like Lucas and Wolf, but that's kind of the category that Evil Cole is in. Pressing the circle button with Good Cole makes him shoot a slow-moving ice ball projectile that freezes the opponent, while pressing the same button with Evil Cole makes him charge a physical fire punch that does direct damage and can cause a large amount of knockback. Two completely different moves, as Lucas and Wolf have specials that are merely variations of other characters' moves. Then there's Ganondorf, a character who is a main villain of one of Nintendo's most successful franchises. It's just a slower, more powerful version of Captain Falcon. Like I said, I'm not trying to bash Nintendo nor Smash Brothers, but come on, the main villain of one of Nintendo's most successful fighters needs his own moveset, not just slow, more powerful Captain Falcon. No one wanted Fat Princess? Then we go over to Fat Princess. Everyone goes on about how no one requested her and how no one wanted her in. My argument is that she was one of the characters shown off in the first trailer that revealed the game in E3 2012. So no one could really say she was requested for a game that most people didn't even know existed yet. Secondly, I bring your attention to Wii Fit Trainer, who faced the same drama as well. Dante. Why did Sony add the DMC version of Devil May Cry's protagonist, Dante, instead of the original from the PlayStation 2 era? At least that's what you're asking yourself, right? Well, what if I were to tell you that Sony originally wanted the former Dante rather than the DMC version everyone referred to as Dante? It was Capcom that pressured the DMC version. Now you're probably thinking, then why didn't Sony take action? Capcom originally wanted Ryu to be the first character to be added to Smash Bros. To represent their company, but it was Nintendo that got Mega Man. Well, that's because Super Smash Bros. Is already an established and successful series. They were able to make those shots without fear of Capcom leaving the project. If Sony were to do the same thing for a new series, then Capcom would have most likely leave the project. But maybe in the sequel there's hope for the original Dante, and we can maybe even have an alternate costume for the DMC version. Luck-based. Success or failure apparently brought by chance rather than through one's own actions. This is the definition of the word luck, something many people claim PlayStation Allstars is based on, saying that it doesn't matter what moves you use because they all have the same purpose. However, I suggest an experiment. One player chooses Kratos, and they can only use square-based attacks, and another player picks Parappa, and they can only use circle attacks. Odds are, the person playing as Kratos will have a better time and get the All-Star moves much faster than Parappa. Why? Because Kratos' square button moves are much faster and long-ranged and can perform combos, as Parappa's circle-based attacks are slow, yet powerful, but they have to be used at a close range, something you can't really do when facing Kratos, who can use long-range attacks for his most basic of moves. There is also the All-Star moves, as you have up to 3. Level 1 is the smallest and has to be used at the right place and time. Quite the opposite of luck. But do you know what is luck? An item that can give anyone their most powerful move or finishing move that floats around the stage where all of the other players completely stop fighting and chase after this item, and it's only determined by who gets it first, even if the said player was just standing on the side of the stage taunting and has not even participated in the fight. In other words, the Smash Ball. Like I said, I'm not trying to bash Nintendo nor Smash Brothers, but still. Limited content. A PS3 and Vita fighting game with only 20 characters to start with and very little modes and stages does sound a bit dull, but no one even thinks as to why that is. PlayStation Allstars Battle Royale was given a small budget and a low development time. They were planning on adding a lot more content into the game, but could not because of their limitations. If the game was given a sequel, I'm sure it would have a lot more content, but not just that, be more successful than the original. Besides, most first installments of other franchises are lacking in content in comparison to their sequels. For example, Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario Bros. 3, Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Mega Man and Mega Man 2, Kingdom Hearts and Kingdom Hearts 2, Super Smash Bros. And Super Smash Bros. Melee. All I can say is, give it time, and give the sequel a chance, or at least the idea of a sequel. No PlayStation 1 characters. There's been a big complaint that there aren't enough classic PlayStation 1 characters, so let's see the starting roster. First, for the PlayStation 1, we have Parappa, Spike, Sir Daniel, Toro, Sweet Tooth, and Hayachi. 6 characters. Then in the PS2, we have Kratos, Ratchet, Jack, Sly Cooper, and Raiden. 5 characters. After seeing this, there's the PS3 characters, with both versions of Cole McGrath, Nathan Drake, Radek, Big Daddy, and a DMC version of Dante. Also 6 characters. Let's not forget the PlayStation Portable characters like Naruto, Sackboy, and Fat Princess. 3 characters. If anything, we need more PlayStation Portable characters, and if we don't count Good and Evil Cole as separate characters, then we should probably see more PlayStation 3 characters. I'm sorry that half the roster isn't classic PS1 characters, but it's clear that they wanted to make a balance between each console brand. Crash Bandicoot and Spyro. The 2 most missed characters that weren't present for the All-Stars title were Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon. I'm kind of surprised that no one knows who owns them, let alone why they weren't in the game. To clear things up, Crash Bandicoot was never owned by Naughty Dog nor Sony, but instead Universal Studios. Naughty Dog, who was also behind the Jak and Daxter, Uncharted, and The Last of Us series, only created and developed the first 3 games and a kart racer. Even though they wanted to make more games, Universal just tossed the rights around and eventually they ended up in Activision's hands. And Crash hasn't seen the light of day since 2010 in an iPad sequel to Nitro Kart. As for Spyro the Dragon, it's almost the exact same story, except his original developers were Insomniac, most well known for Ratchet & Clank and Resistance. And, well, Spyro is still sort of alive, as a Skylander. Not even. Sony has attempted multiple times to get the rights to Crash Bandicoot, and Naughty Dog has tried to include Crash as cameos in other games. First, a simple fan art contest for the Naughty Dog games, and Activision refused. Then a cameo in Uncharted 4: A Thief's End, which was also refused. The only time they didn't refuse was an inclusion of Crash Bandicoot for PlayStation Allstars, but it's still Activision's fault. Why is that? Because Activision wanted $18 million to let Crash into the game, an unreasonable amount of money since PlayStation All-Stars already had a low budget and development time, so there was no hope. Activision, why are you so protective over an IP that you never made or even use nowadays? Nintendo did it first. All-Stars shouldn't exist because Nintendo did the party fighting game genre first. Just because you do a genre first does not mean that if anyone does anything similar, it's quote-unquote ripping them off. Following that logic, Sonic, Mega Man, Pac-Man's platforming games, Rayman, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Meat Boy, Shovel Knight, Sackboy, and even some of Nintendo's other IPs like Donkey Kong and Kirby are ripping off Mario because they all had platformers, whether that be 2D or 3D, but Mario did it first. This would also mean, following this biased logic, that Splatoon, Call of Duty, and Halo are ripping off Wolfenstein 3D for being shooters, but Wolfenstein 3D did it first. Or maybe Pokemon's ripping off Final Fantasy because Final Fantasy did a turn-based RPG first. You see how easy it is to use the same argument on other games? Rip-off label. And of course, we have the most popular argument said about PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, and that's a quote-unquote rip-off, trying to capitalize on Nintendo's success simply because the PlayStation Move well exists, and apparently Nintendo's the only company in the world that can make original ideas, and every other company, even stuff like Capcom, Namco, and Sega, are just trying to rip them off for extra cash. PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale is the same in its idea, but are completely different by execution. Super Smash Bros. Is about attacking your opponent until they fly off the stage, as All-Stars is about raising the power in your own meter to use one of 3 All-Stars to defeat your opponents, or more opponents. Similar to that of the Amiibos. Amiibos also have a similar idea to Activision's Skylanders and Disney's Disney Infinity figures, but are different in execution. Whereas Skylanders and Disney Infinity figures are used to unlock certain characters in a single series, the Amiibos can be used to unlock different pieces of content in multiple games, depending on what game or figure that you use. So even with the differences, if All-Stars is really a rip-off to Smash, then I guess the Amiibos are just a rip-off to Skylanders. Not that I'm saying that they are, but you can see how easy it is to flip these arguments around. Well, there you have it. I hope I changed a few people's minds. If I didn't, oh well. Oh, and if I did, or if you still like All-Stars as much as I do, I encourage a lot of people to use the hashtag PS Allstars Battle Royale on their social medias and share it to a lot of friends to show Sony that we care about this franchise. But if you're not interested, that's fine. However, if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, maybe favorite, and subscribe if you'd like to see some more. I make videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And remember, we all see fish in the ceiling at least once in our lives. Shit, mother, I say I'll meet her,